All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at using some of the cloning and content-aware tools to clean up some of our images. Sometimes our images might have little things that we need to get rid of, and we'll take a look at some of the tools we can use that can help get rid of some of these blemishes. So I've got a few images open and I'm going to demonstrate a few different things that we can do. The first is I'm going to take a look at how we can use the healing brush tools and the clone tools in this image to get rid of some of these flies. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate my background layer. The reason why is because I don't want to actually work on my original image in case I completely mess things up. I want to keep my original image intact inside my file so that I can always go back and access it. So I'm going to duplicate that layer. I can either go duplicate layer or keyboard shortcut is Command J. And let's take a look at what some of these tools can do. So let's say this image, we wouldn't necessarily want to have all these flies. We might want to get rid of this tag. In the toolbar on the left in Photoshop, and if you don't have all the tools, once again, just remember you can click on the three dots, edit toolbar, edit toolbar, there we are, and you can always add in or make sure different tools are active. I think on PCs it's under edit at the bottom, I think. We're going to work with some of the spot healing brushes, patch tool, and some of the content aware and the clone tools. So I'm going to first start out with the spot healing brush. What this brush does is basically, I'll zoom in here, as I click on an area, whoops, that didn't do too good, I made it too big. As I click on an area, what it's going to do is it's going to sample the surrounding pixels and it's going to try and fill in that space based on what the surrounding pixels look like. Now, I can see actually as I'm doing this, this is interesting. I can see it's making this very pixelated. Let's try one of the other tools. I'm going to try the patch tool. I can draw a selection. Whoops. Deselect. I can draw a selection and drag it over top. Deselect. And it's going to blend in that new selection where the other selection was. You can see, so I'm drawing my selection. Now, if I want to draw and do the reverse, in the toolbar here for the patch healing tool, I'm going to switch it from destination to source. And what that means is that if I circle something, I can then drag to where I want it to be replaced with. So you can see what it's doing is it's sampling the area that I'm dragging it to, and it's replacing those pixels. Or you can do the opposite where you click and drag over top of the shape. Spot healing brush, once again, you just paint over the spot. Now, for some reason in this picture, it's really giving this pixelated kind of edge. You can see the pixels here, and that's why I'm not using it. Let's see what happens with this fly up here. Yeah. I think because the picture has a general amount of kind of fuzziness to it, like it's a little bit blurred, I think that's why it's acting like that. Let's see how it works in this image. Yeah, I'm still getting a little bit of that. Let's see. Oh, there we are. It's got create texture added onto it. I didn't pay attention to that. Let's try it again. Here we go. Okay, so it's just the settings in the tool. I don't know how it changed. So what I had for the spot healing brush, it said create texture. I don't want that. Proximity match does really good as well as trying to match it in around with whatever's going on around the edge of the image. So all you basically have to do is just click over the spot on the image. And for little blemishes, as you can see, does a really nice job. And all it's doing once again is that as I'm highlighting the area, it's selecting the pixels from the outside and basically using those to kind of fill in the space, sampling them. To hide out or disguise whatever the area is. And so it senses what's the high contrast area within the selection. You can see in this case, you can see that we've got around a lot of flies already. Another tool that we can use is a tool called the cloning tool. And what the cloning tool does is that we can more specifically, I'll go to the clone stamp tool there. We can specifically select where we're going to copy from. So if I want to clone out this fly here, and by the way, I'm changing the brush size with the square brackets next to the letter P. Square brackets allow you to quickly change the brush size up and down. You can also always go to the brush size up here, or you can also always right click to get the brush size. Now to work the clone stamp tool, what I'm going to do is I'm going to option select an area that I want to clone from, click, and then it's going to match that area. You can see now how it's following along. I'll do the same. I'm going to option click here, and then clone based on that area. And actually that one didn't work out so well. I'm going to go with a similar kind of darker color. I'll option click there. Now it looks a little more unnatural. And so this would be a good example of why we would use the clone stamp tool. I don't want to select colors that are similar. I want to select color where that's close. Sorry, I want to select colors that are similar. So I'm going to option click there, color it in, option click there, color it in. Excuse me. Now let's say I wanted to get rid of this tag. I could do the same thing. Make my brush a little smaller. I'm going to slowly work my color in from all angles to get rid of the tag. I'll start at the bottom here. I'm going to option click and then paint upwards. Option click. And the idea is I'm trying to do it in such a way that I can avoid creating a repeating pattern. Anytime you have a repeating pattern in an image, the human eye is really good at seeing that there's a pattern that's repeating. And so therefore it knows someone has edited it with Photoshop. So I'm trying to keep it as randomized as possible. There we go. Got rid of that tag. So the clone stamp tool is really handy for being able to get rid of stuff like that. And then the spot healing brush and the patch tool are also really good. Let's take a look at a couple other tools we can use. There's a tool called the Content Aware Fill. And what that actually does is that, just like the other two tools, it selects an area and then it tries to fill that in area based on the content around it. So let's say I want to get rid of this blurry kind of fence line. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a selection first. I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool. I'll make a selection around this line. There we are. And I'm going to go edit, fill, edit, fill, and I'm going to select the type of fill to be content aware. What it's going to do is it's going to sense the pixels that are around there and change that other contrast area to match its surroundings. I'll deselect. So this tool is fantastic for very quickly getting rid of and hiding elements that we don't want in the image. Let me show you an example using this. So let's say I wanted to get rid of let's say I wanted to get rid of where it says Miss Chamberlain. This might be actually a little too much. You have to be careful. Sometimes if it's too much of an area that you're cloning, it can be too much. I'll start with the letter T. I'm going to select around it and try and get as close as I can just so that I have a little more accuracy. I'll go Edit Fill, Content Aware, click OK, deselect. Let's see what happens if I try to do Miss Chamberlain's name. Get as close as I can. So it's a great way that if you had something like this and you didn't want to have words all over the chalkboard, my philosophy on when you're doing a lot of editing, it's easier to do smaller sections at a time rather than try and clean up a whole large area. The way that the software works in the computer, the way the computer program works, is that it's basically, as I said, it's sampling the surrounding pixels, and then it's trying to figure out what the area inside would look like if it matched that. The larger the sampling or the larger area selection you have, the less likely it's going to look accurate. All right, I'm going to go Edit Fill. Let's see how well this works. Content Aware. Deselect. Actually not too bad. So that itself is a great tool for getting rid of problems. Let's say I wanted to get rid of this blurry face over here. I'm going to actually use the Patch tool, and I'm going to go Source. So changing up here where it says Source. I'm going to draw a line around the face. There we are. I'll drag over to what I'm going to replace it to, deselect, deselect. Just like that, I can very easily clean that up. So we could take an image like this and using a combination of the different tools, we can get rid of all sorts of blemishes. We can get rid of elements that we don't want in there. Say I want to clean up the whole roof. Let's say I didn't want this stovepipe in. Let's try using our, we could use either the clone stamp tool. I'll make my selection. I can paint up there. Or, I feel like in this case, the Content Aware tool might be better. We'll use our selection tool. There's some shadows here that might cause us problems. Edit Fill, Content Aware. Yeah, so there is some shadows there that we need to get rid of, but that actually did not too bad of a job of getting rid of that pipe. I'd have to go in probably afterwards with some of the clone stamp tools, maybe even the patch tool. And slowly work at getting rid of it. With time, we could probably clean it up enough that it's, whoops, a daisy, wrong button. That's looking a little bit better. So those are the clone stamp tools, the patch tools, the content aware tools. Now there is another type of content aware that we can look at that I'll quickly demonstrate. It's a little bit more advanced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection again. Let's say I want to clone out this other pipe here. I'll select around it. I'm going to go Edit Content Aware. Oh, sorry, Content Aware Fill. What this is going to do is going to bring up a separate dialog box. And you'll notice in this one there's a green area highlighting the image. It's going to allow me to select the elements of the image that I'm going to clone from. So what I can do is I can actually either add into, or in this case remove, because I don't want to use the Union Jack to clone that area in to fill it in. But I am going to use all the yellow, so I'm going to select more of the yellow down over here. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm just telling the computer, this is all the information we're going to use to try and fill in that space. And now I'll click, and it's going to show me over here what it's going to look like. There we are. I'll click OK. Deselect. And once again, it's left some shadowing that we can get rid of. I'll do the same down here. Let's say I wanted to get rid of this backpacker person down here that's in the bottom corner. Now this has got a couple different things going on, so this might not work. It's got vertical lines, horizontal lines, and angled lines. Let's see what happens. Edit, content aware fill. Oh, I know what I did. Hit cancel. I accidentally went on the wrong layer. When you use the content aware fill separately like I just did, it creates a brand new layer. So we've got to go back to our original layer. And now edit content aware fill. I'll get rid of some of this because it's a little too much sampling. But it now knows where it's going to sample from. Let's see. That's going to show me over here. So it's pretty close, but you'll notice, I'm going to click OK. It's close-ish, but you'll notice it does have some issues. You can see there's repeating pattern there. It doesn't perfectly get all this straight. And you can see the floor, it doesn't quite perfectly do. In that case, I probably would have been better served with using a combination of the clone tool and this content aware tool and using the spot healing brush tool. All right, so let's say I've got my images and they're looking pretty good. Let's say I might have a few adjustment layers as well. I'm just going to add in a little bit of contrast here. There we go. Make it look a little nicer. We need to export our image to CMYK. Now, if I just go and convert our image to CMYK for the file. If I just go image mode CMYK, it's going to tell me that I actually have to flatten the image. It's going to say changing modes can affect the appearance of layers. Flatten image before changing mode. Well, if I click flatten, I'm going to lose all that editability that I have in my image, and I don't want that to happen. Command Z. Same thing here. If I just hit convert CMYK, it's going to flatten my image, and I could potentially lose some of those adjustment layers or anything I've added in. I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do, my trick that I'm going to use to get around keeping a working layered file but having it as CMYK is I'm going to select all my layers, and I'm going to go group, and I'm going to, oops, it didn't. I thought I was going to put them. I'm going to put them in my group. Oh, the background layer is locked. Unlock it. There we go. I'll put them in my group. So I've got everything in a group now. I'm going to take that group, and I'm going to turn that group into a smart object. So from the flyout menu, convert to smart object. Remember when I talked about how a smart object is kind of like a file inside a file? I can now, with that group selected, go image mode CMYK to convert to CMYK. It's going to ask me, do I want to rasterize this? Meaning, do I want to basically convert it from a smart object into pixels again? I'm going to select don't rasterize. And what it will do is it's going to change our color mode to CMYK. We still have our smart object. And now I've got a CMYK image I can put into my file. But if I needed to edit it, I just double click on the smart object. It'll open it up. See, it says Group 1 PSB. There's all my adjustment layers. I can make changes if I want to. Let's say I want to add in vibrance. Change the vibrance in the image, make it much more vibrant. Ooh, way too much. Hit save. Close my smart objects. And then back here, we're back to CMYK. So by converting a bunch of layers into a group, and then converting the group into a smart object, and then converting our image to CMYK, it allows us to retain editability, but it also ensures that we have an image that will print correctly. So that is working with the cloning and content-aware tools, and then that's also switching our image mode to CMYK for final output for our file.